Mike Mbuvi Sonko, the former governor for Nairobi, is a street politician. And Mike Sonko is a very smart politician, very popular and very strategic. But Mike Sonko failed to understand one thing. He failed to understand the determination of the deep state to take control of Nairobi. In fact, Mike Sonko failed to understand that he was part of the deep state determination to take control of Nairobi. So the deep state used Mike Sonko to wrestle the control of Nairobi from ODM party. And while the deep state was doing that, Mike Sonko in his own mind also thought he was using the deep state to win Nairobi, and then after winning, he could then stamp his authority in Nairobi. And that's why immediately after taking control, Mike Sonko started frustrating Polycarp Igathe. Polycarp Igathe was the deep state's candidate for Nairobi. That's what Mike Sonko failed to understand. And that was the beginning of Mike Sonko's problem with the deep state. And Mike Sonko was effectively impeached as the governor for Nairobi. And today, there are three questions which the deep state is asking. Should they allow a by-election to go on? Should they bring Polycarp Igathe back as the governor? And should they bring in Ann Mwenda Kananu as the next governor for Nairobi? In this video, I want to explain to you guys the strategy by the deep state to install Ann Mwenda Kananu, or if that will not work, even Polycarp Igathe as the next governor for Nairobi. But before we do that, if you're watching this video for the first time, please take a second or two and click the subscribe button so that next time we produce a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. Now back to the main issue. Let us go back to the history of Nairobi. In 2013, Dr. Evans Kidero was elected as the governor for Nairobi. And Evans Kidero managed to work very closely with President Uhuru Kenyatta. In fact, the main reason why certain supporters of Raila Odinga or ODM party did not vote for Kidero in 2017 was because of the fact that they believed that Kidero was undermining Raila Odinga. But the deep state was not convinced that Kidero was their man. So they identified Mike Mbuvi Sonko. Mike Sonko, in my considered opinion, was not qualified to be the governor for Nairobi. If he was to be vetted properly, Mike Sonko was not going to be cleared to contest. But because he was a candidate of the deep state, he was cleared to contest. And the deep state gave him Polycarp Igathe as the running mate. So they won. But a few months later, that was in January 2018, Polycarp Igathe rendered his resignation letter. That was shocking. Because according to the initial arrangement, Mike Sonko was to be the political face of Nairobi. And Polycarp Igathe was the guy who was supposed to run Nairobi. I want to take example of Badi now. Major Badi was not supposed to be Igathe. What Badi doing today? Those are the functions which Polycarp Igathe was supposed to perform. And then Sonko was supposed to deal with the political issues. Like kama ODM analeta siasa anamwanga zile mavi kwa kiwanja, things like those. So in January, Polycarp Igathe resigned, 2018. Mike Sonko was expected to appoint a new governor. In his own wisdom, Mike Sonko refused to appoint a deputy governor. And I did a video on this platform. I'm going to share the link to it below. Why Mike Sonko refused to appoint a deputy governor. In his thinking, he believed that he had fallen out of favor with the deep state, and any mistake of appointing a deputy governor would mean that the deep state was going to start working with the deputy governor and could even try to impeach him. So he refused to appoint a deputy governor. Every time he would attempt this, he would just come up with names, like names of Megona, a person he knew so well was not going to be acceptable. So around December 2019, Mike Sonko was arrested, for those who follow politics of Nairobi. And after the arrest, Mike Sonko was barred from accessing his office. That was in December 2019. Sonko was arrested, charged in court, and the court made a ruling that he was not going to access his office. They never said that Mike Sonko ceased being a governor. So that was in December 2019. And then in January, then Mike Sonko came up with a name of a lady, Ann Kananu. She came up with this name. Remember, the court had barred him from accessing his office. Then, in January now, he nominates Ann Kananu and submits the name to the assembly for vetting. And while he was doing this, Mike Sonko also reached out to another gentleman called Peter Agoro. So Peter Agoro also went to court to block the vetting. So Sonko, on one hand, submitting the name of Mwenda Kananu for vetting. Na huku nyuma, he also sent someone to go to court to block that vetting. So basically, constitutionally, he had performed his role, because previously Mike Sonko used to claim that there was no legal binding for him. There was no legal framework for him to appoint a deputy governor. And of course, the Supreme Court made a ruling that should any vacancy arise, then the governor must appoint a deputy governor, I think within 14 days. So Mike Sonko tried to fill that gap. Then he sent someone to go to court. So this guy went to court and obtained an injunction blocking, or an order stopping, the County Assembly of Nairobi from vetting Ann Kananu Mwenda. Then from nowhere, Mike Sonko was impeached. So after the impeachment of Mike Sonko, then it meant only two things. That the deputy governor was going to take over, and because we didn't have a deputy governor, then it means if the deputy is not there, then the speaker was supposed to take over. So the speaker was going to take over for 60 days as IBC prepares for an election. So the speaker was installed as the governor and is currently in office. IBC also declared the seat vacant and set the date for a by-election in February, within 60 days. Then certain individuals started going to court to block that election. So several people have gone to court to stop the election. There are people who have gone to court, for example, to stop that election because, according to them, Polycarp Igathe never resigned. And they are claiming that Polycarp Igathe never resigned because if he was to resign, he ought to have resigned through the assembly. Now, I'm just trying to look for the letter, Polycarp Igathe letter of resignation. He's saying Polycarp Igathe resigned on 11th of January 2018. He was saying, resignation, Your Excellency. And this is where these guys have problems with, that this resignation letter ought to have gone through the county assembly, not through the governor. So according to the assembly, according to these guys, according to them, Polycarp Igathe has not resigned because they simply never received his letter. And even if you look at this letter, there is nowhere where this assembly. It's like the West Pokot guy, the deputy governor of West Pokot, the guy who is in the United States of America. You know, that guy is just outside there. He's still the deputy governor. Lonyongapuo cannot do anything. There's no legal binding there that he must be in office. So in West Pokot, the deputy governor is busy because he's a neurosurgeon somewhere in the US. The salary maybe was stopped, but the fact of the matter is he remains the deputy governor. That's the reason they are giving here. So Igathe was saying, I wish to resign my seat as the elected deputy governor of Nairobi City County effective 1 p.m. Wednesday, 31st January 2018. Serving Kenyans in Nairobi under your leadership has been a high honor and distinct privilege. I am grateful to Nairobians and yourself for giving me the opportunity to serve. Thank you, and please accept my highest personal regard. God bless you, sir. So according to one of the cases in court, Polycarp Igathe did not resign, and the court is yet to make a determination. Then Peter Agoro, who was used by Mike Sonko to stop the vetting of Ann Kananu, pulled a surprise. He went to court and withdrew the case. So remember, elections cannot happen in Nairobi. The assembly are saying that they had they had a court order stopping them from vetting Ann Mwenda Kananu because the name had already been submitted. Then someone went to court. So this order has been removed. So according to Nairobi County Assembly, they are now free to vet Ann. And they've actually issued a communications to that effect. So basically, I'm seeing the hands of the deep state in the move to either bring in Ann Mwenda Kananu as the governor for Nairobi or to bring Polycarp Igathe. Because they are saying that Igathe did not resign. So if the court is going to determine that Polycarp Igathe did not resign procedurally, then Polycarp Igathe is or will remain the deputy governor. So by law, is going to be sworn in as the governor. But should that ruling fail, then they are going to bank on Ann Mwenda Kananu. The assembly is going to proceed for them because the name had been submitted to them, according to them. They are going to proceed and vet the lady. And probably the name is going to go through. But Mike Sonko realized there was some fishy things going on. So he went also to court. He went to court to try to stop the man from withdrawing that case. Remember, the case was filed because, remember, Sonko submitted the name of this lady to assembly. Then someone went to court to stop it. Then the guy who went to court to stop it is now withdrawing. But Sonko, who submitted the name, is now saying the man should not withdraw the case. So that tells you that there's a high voltage politics currently happening there. And Mike Sonko also wrote another letter in December, on December 7th last year. In that letter, Mike Sonko is actually withdrawing the nominee for Nairobi County Assembly. So the question is, because even by that time Sonko had not resigned. The question is, if you submit a name for vetting, by law, if the case, if the case, I mean the vetting is taken to a court, by law, can you withdraw it? Because it was still in court. So I see a situation where Mike Sonko is going to fail and is going to hand over this deep state what they want. But why do you think the deep state is not keen on election in Nairobi? 3 reasons very fast. Number one, they want to avoid a better elections in Nairobi. President Uhuru Kenyatta is not willing and is not ready for an election. Conducting an election in Nairobi is like conducting a mini general election in this country. I'm sure Uhuru Kenyatta is against that. Even the cost implication itself. Because if you're saying you can't have a referendum, then why should we have a by-election in Nairobi for the governor? It's going to be very expensive. It's going to be tiresome. Definitely, Uhuru Kenyatta will be forced to go outside there to campaign. He doesn't want that. Number two, I think President Uhuru Kenyatta is also keen on the work which is being done by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. Major General Badi is doing a fantastic job in Nairobi. So the president would want someone who will directly support Major Bade. If you go for an election and say the opponent wins, let's say Margaret Wanjiru, or even Megona, or even Mike Sonko makes a comeback, do you think he will terminate or continue with the Nairobi Metropolitan Service? The first thing they will do is to try and refuse this Nairobi Metropolitan Service. Because the other reason why Sonko was kicked out was because he refused to approve a budget of 37 billion to the Nairobi Metropolitan Service. So Uhuru Kenyatta would want the Nairobi Metropolitan Service to continue. And therefore, the only way it can continue is by giving someone like Ann Kananu Mwenda the opportunity. Ann Mwenda could not raise, cannot support, I'm sure she cannot afford the services of the kind of lawyers who are representing her in court. Paul Moite, talk of who. The other guy, I'm told, was also given some good money. Agoro, Peter Agoro also received some good money to withdraw the case. I don't think Ann has that money. So it's either the deep state is in that case, or some people have realized and have seen an opportunity to exploit. So they want to support Ann Kananu. So I think because of the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, Uhuru will not want a new person to come. Number 4, I think Uhuru Kenyatta. Number 3, I think Uhuru Kenyatta also want to focus on BBI. If you go to Nairobi election and they are defeated, how will that impact on Nairobi? Of course, a win for them in Nairobi would be good for them. But you know, in politics, there's a winner, there's a loser. You can win, you can lose. So what will happen? So I think Uhuru wants to be focused more on the building bridges initiative process. And lastly, he wants to take control of Nairobi. By taking control of Nairobi, it means the person who is going to win Nairobi must be your guy. Ann Kananu can only become the governor of Nairobi if the system is pushing for her. Polycarp Igathe can only become the governor of Nairobi if the system is pushing for him. So in case of those two guys, one of them making it to the gubernatorial seat, then it will mean they are going to be puppets of the state. Let me hear your thoughts. Thank you guys, and please may you have a good day.